I didn't even take mathematics in my 11th or 12th grade.
Right.
So I had been out of touch with the mathematics for like 5 years by the time I started preparing for the GMAT. So it was quite a challenge. What I actually did was I took a month-long sabbatical, which really, gave me a boost on my preparation. Like after I gave my first attempt, next 15 days I hardly even studied. Like I was in quota for most of the period. After I came back, I fell sick. So I just like took 3 official mocks before I wrote the second attempt.
Big congratulations on the 715. Not just the score, a very fantastic score of 99 percentile, but this
You?
stands out even more. Verbal reasoning, 100
Okay.
percentile, zero error, zero error. I've been like, this is like the most shocking thing, right? Whatever the score turns out to be, what a verbal reasoning. Now you tell me, because this is special. You spent about 15 days, 20 days to get this score, right? I recall, having one conversation. Let's talk about your 685 score, and you're like, Natasha, give me few more days, and I'm taking because I know I can pull it. This is what you had texted me back, and tell me, how do you feel about this right now?
So I feel great. I actually scored 100 percentile on the verbal the last time when I got the
Also,
685. Yeah.
yeah.
So what happened on the 685 score was I got just one question wrong in quant, and my quant score was 71 percentile.
Wow.
So I was very confused as to why that was the case. So which was the reason I retook the exam. And this time I had like 3 or 4 mistakes in quant, and I still got an 85 percentile. So I guess it had something to do with the adaptive nature of the test. Yeah.
We're going to be looking
Anyway,
quickly at
yeah.
the section wise, because that will talk a lot. Maybe when you compare back at a 685, the first question wrong could have been in the first four question itself.
It was the 20th question.
20th question, and
Yeah.
you've got the 71. One question
Eh,
wrong. Wow.
yeah.
Again, it depends upon the type of question that you'd gotten. But overall, you look at this, you in quant, you had one, as you said, 10th question, 17, 18 questions wrong.
See.
Um, that's why you've got an 85th percentile. Verbal, zero wrong. Absolutely nothing. It feels so nice to see everything is correct here. At data insight, you got like the one again, four questions wrong. And so that kind of gave a 96 percentile. You see that? More questions wrong on data insights and quant. That's the like making a mistake in quant really cost you so much more than any both of these two sections. That is period, right? Like so, but if you go back in time, that is yesterday in the exam center, and if you had to change something about quant and data inside, if you look back at your score report, what would it have been?
So the quant section actually went pretty well to my standards. I wasn't very sure about quant. The mocks I had written, I was getting a similar score, 85, 86 percentile. DI, I could have done better. If I had just managed my time a bit better, I spent a few more minutes on the multi-source reasoning questions than I would have liked, which caused me a time crunch towards the last questions. And if you see, I think I've made 2 of those mistakes on the last 2 questions, and I had just like a minute for each of those questions left. So I just like read the question, read the options, and marked an answer and moved on. So if I had like managed my time a bit better, I could have maybe gotten one of those two right.
Right, right. So we'll speak about this exam part a little later in our conversation. Could you
Mm.
give us a little bit brief about yourself? Where are you currently working, and how did this exact idea of pursuing GMAT or pursuing an MBA dream itself come into play? Yeah. And how did you come across top 1%, of course, to start with your preparation?
I'm currently working with Aadhar Housing Finance. We are a financial institution that's in the lending space for the low income segment. In New Delhi area. I manage the North region. Like I'm a consultant for the North region here, Delhi, Punjab, and Haryana. And actually, I wanted to do an MBA ever since the final year of my graduation. And I actually have been enrolled with the top on and off for the past 3 years. but work things, and I just couldn't get myself to focus enough on the exam. So I think the first time I enrolled with Top was during my final year of graduation. I took the self-paced course, and I really didn't put too much of efforts into the preparation. So I didn't even take the exam then. I decided that I'll work for 2 years and then I'll do the prep. Then again, I enrolled last year, and then again, work things came up. I got a promotion, and then things got hectic, and I had to be at work, so I didn't prepare. Then again, that was live classes actually, but I couldn't attend the
Oh
classes and
my
stuff
God.
because I got the promotion and I
Yeah.
had to be at work. So after that, I took the this thing again, self-paced course, and this time I just stuck to the plan, the one that comes, the Sandeep sir's plan, customized plan, and I just stuck to it. And I think that's enough. That's all you need. If you just stick to the plan, give it 3 months, 3.5 months, that's all you need.
Now, so this is a question that I would ask you. Maybe you've never given it a thought. Had you considered it, seriously considered preparing the first time that you thought about GMAT, right? Versus now, like what was a better timing? You wanted to get done with GMAT when you were in college, or is this the best time if you look back?
I haven't given it any thought yet, but I don't suppose it matters too much. I mean, yes, I could have maybe given more time to my applications had I taken it earlier.
Right.
But other than that, I don't think it matters too much when you take the exam.
Because these are the things that you think about, giving GMAT. Suddenly work comes and you
Yeah.
and then you don't,
Mhm.
you really can't. You would have thought, okay, chalo abhi start karte hai, and then you have promotion or you have
Yeah.
to go out for work and whatnot. And so in those contexts, I'm saying, was it better that you had, you because you thought about it in your college, you started in college,
Yeah.
you had given it in college.
Yeah. That way, I suppose it would be better the earlier you start preparing for it because you never know what comes up. And so the more time you have, the better it is.
Better it is with the application point of view. So glad this entire thing turned out to be very well. Not too far from, let's say, when you initially started. But okay, so in terms of your preparation, okay, so could you tell us about what were the initial section that seemed a lot more intimidating? Like, okay, this section, though, it's going to be really difficult to crack.
Yeah.
Then
It
it
was the
turned out to
quant
be the
section.
best.
Yeah, it
What?
was the quant section actually. So the thing is, I didn't even take mathematics in my 11th or 12th grade.
Right,
So I had been out of touch with the mathematics for like 5 years by the time I started preparing for the GMAT.
right,
So the verbal, I was pretty confident even back then. Like the first time I tried a set of verbal questions, I was like 70% accuracy, 75% accuracy without any preparation also. So I
right.
was pretty confident about the verbal part. But quant, I was like terrible at. I was getting like 50, 45% accuracy and something like that. But I think, building depth, like Sandeep sir says, not just getting done with the questions, but actually building depth, building enough confidence that you can actually. So if you can build that amount of depth that you're confident enough to teach, then I think it's not a problem. Like after I gave my first attempt, next 15 days I hardly even studied. Like I was in quota for most of that period. After I came back, I fell sick, so I just like took 3 official mocks before I wrote the second attempt.
You did. You
And but
mentioned.
once I think you build that depth, then I don't think you need too much more than that. So actually sticking to the plan, the Sandeep sir's plan, making sure you're 100% confident before moving on to the next thing, I think would be the most important lesson I've learned.
Yeah, since it's not been too long since you gave your GMAT, I'm going to dive in even more deeper to ask this question. How did you really overcome quant? You mentioned that quant has always been something that you haven't really picked up from and after in the undergrad, and it has been challenging. So, what exact resources from our content, from Sandeep sir's teaching methodology and strategy, and your personal strategy that you employed during your preparation that really stood out for you?
So I actually didn't access too much of other material other than the top material. All I did was I did the pre-work, took the class, did the post-work, and then even for the quant 7 to 800 level practice questions, I would have hardly done like 20% of those questions. Or
Really?
I focused on the mocks. So I took the quant the top mocks, like all 8 of them, maybe twice, and then
Okay.
I took like 8 of the official mocks.
You
And
stand out as a brilliant candidate because then 20% is the question, the practice. So you spend a lot of time on the concept that is building depth,
yeah, that
and a lot of time not on the practice question, but on the mock test, which is really
yes,
testing. And that kind of just helped
yeah,
you.
because
Hmm.
yeah, that's because once I was done with the concept and I started on the top level questions, 7 to 800 level questions, I realized that I could solve all the questions given enough time. So if I took 5 minutes, I would solve all of the questions one after the another.
Right,
So what I realized was that time management then would then be an issue,
right.
because if you know that you can solve the question, you tend to spend extra time on the question. So I
Question.
didn't want that happening on the exam day. So I
Right,
focused on the mocks. Okay, now I know that I can solve, if not all, then I can solve at least 90% of the questions. So let me make sure that I can do them in time. And
right.
that turned out to be a challenge. So I had to spend a lot of time there.
On the mock and
But
spending.
after,
No,
yeah,
but so doing these mocks, this is again a question. I know it is very beneficial to do it mocks twice, but a lot of people are like, but I already know the answer. How is this even a better representation of, where I stand when you're doing the mocks twice? So what was your
so I
idea of
didn't.
doing the mocks twice?
So it was not like that. What I did was I first took the all eight of the top mocks. After that, I moved on to the official mocks. I took all eight of them, and then after it had been like a month or so after I had taken the top mocks. So
Right,
I didn't actually remember too many of the questions. Plus, the top mock questions are anyway a cut above what you'll get in the actual GMAT.
right,
So I think that uh, you get the approach right from there. Even if you get a tough question, you have the approach in your mind. Okay, if this kind of question comes up, I know how to go about it. So I thought that would be just to refresh that thing in my mind, in case a tougher question comes up in the exam, I know how to go about it. If you know the approach, if you can figure out the approach early, I think you can get the question done in 2 minutes. The maximum amount of time goes into figuring out an approach to tackle the question.
right.
So which is why I took the mock.
I don't see you were making it sound very simple, but the struggle is really hard. I know it's
It
like
was, it was,
in
it
a
was.
practice, if you
I
break it down and open the layers of the like an onion, right? The core of it is it requires so much time. At any given point, if you do have some nuggets to share, like how did you manage to build that core? Let us know. But you can talk about even the verbal and the DI section as well. Was that always easier for you, or how did you overcome those challenges? Because generally, to speak, right, verbal is not very intuitive. Like you can't go about what you know with the answers. Generally, at least for most of us Indians, we do not get, and that's where all of us struggle. So how did you overcome this 100% accuracy or 100% tile in your score?
So verbal actually did come somewhat naturally to me, but uh, I was still getting only about 70-75% accuracy as per my natural ability. After that, I think the octave technique for RC is like magical. You can just be sure of your answers. Being sure of your answers makes a hell of a lot of difference in the exam. If you just know, okay, I'm going the right way. So the octave technique, just mastering the octave technique and making sure that you don't have to apply it like consciously, and it just becomes a part of your process. So doing
But
that in verbal and
overall, how many
yeah,
questions have you solved? So that see the surety doesn't come in doing just 12 passages or 50 passages, right? It
yeah, no, it
comes with
won't
so
come.
many
Yeah,
questions. So how many would you have solved?
I would have solved a lot of verbal. So what I used to do was I would just take a sectional like 12 passages every day while working. So whenever I get like 15 minutes off on work, I'll just open the app and do 15 passages or whatever, however many I can get done in that time. So that way I kept in constant touch with verbal throughout my preparation. Like for the last 6 months, I would have been doing at least two passages, three passages every day. Or if not RC, then I would be tackling CR questions and stuff like that. So a lot. I can't really give you a number as to how many, but definitely a lot.
The,
And
could easily be around 300, 400, including CR and passages. Um, yeah, so how about the data insights? What did you find too odd about the entire data? Like, what worked in your favor and what did not in terms of the data insights?
so data insight, I would say that the level of the question actually matters a lot, because as I said, I took a lot of marks. So what I noticed was there's some level of questions above which my accuracy just drops off. So I actually didn't spend too much of my time preparing for data insight, but like for for the top mocks that I took, in half of them I got above 95 percentile in four of them, and in four of them I got 50th percentile.
Right.
So yeah, so I was like, I did my, the error book and stuff, and what I noticed was it's about the difficulty of the question. Some questions will just take you more time. So managing time was a crucial, especially for multi-source reasoning questions, because you have to go back and forth a lot of times on some of those questions.
Right.
So
But
yeah,
surprisingly, you have done fairly well in your multi-source here. I mean, you've got two questions wrong in data sufficiency and two questions in a non-math. It's two part analysis and graph and table. I don't know if you've actually got, yeah, your multi-source, all of them are correct. And you got it in, succession. Five, six, seven was multi-source reasoning. So this really can take sometimes a lot of time. But how did you manage the MSR questions in your exam, especially in the first half?
um, so I actually really didn't put much thought into it, if I'm being honest.
Yeah,
I just yeah, so I just had an idea that overall I would get like anywhere from 16 to 18 questions right on any set of 20. So I just went in the okay because for the last 15 days I didn't do any preparation as such. So I
right.
was just like, okay, we'll see whatever because I was still quite satisfied with the 685. So I was like, okay, we'll see if we can get any more. If not, then this is okay.
This is
So
right. No, but you
yeah,
have
so I think
fabulous
another
time. You mentioned about time management, but you've really managed the time between each of the section very well. I think the maximum you've gone is 3 minutes for a question in data sufficiency, sorry, data insights. But in the exam, did you see yourself running out of time in any of the section?
India, yes.
India,
If you
the
see, yeah,
last.
after the for the nine at the 19th question mark, or at the 18th question mark actually, I had like 4 minutes left and three questions to tackle. So then I just sort of read the question, read the options, and marked an answer and moved on for the
And
last
both
three
of
questions.
them happened to be wrong, I think.
Two of them happened to be wrong. One I got
Yeah,
right.
so I think if you had a little bit more time there, the percentile would have again boosted to
Yeah.
100 percentile, nevertheless. But again, I'm really surprised and very happy about the verbal 100 percentile. In the last few days that I've spoken to, people have gotten an 100 percentile, but not all of them right. This is record breaking, at least what you've seen, right? Again, massive congratulations on that. Now, very quickly, this is about your personal space in terms of how were you managing? You said you were a consultant, you were trying to open books 15 minutes whenever you had the time, but how are you really balancing both of them? And how long did it actually take you to complete once you initially started?
So it was quite a challenge. What I actually did was I took a month-long sabbatical, which really, gave me a boost on my preparation. So I took that month-long sabbatical. Got done with all my concepts within that period. After that, it was just practice that was remaining. So I would get back from work around 7:30, and then you can spend like 2 hours, 3 hours in practice. And but that you need at least 3 hours every day for 3.5 months. That much you need at the minimum.
And you had a great motive. Like, how did you keep your everyday motivation to die? Abhi nahi to kabhi nahi types, and then you really sat down to get that score.
So actually, I struggled quite a lot with my motivation, especially during the start. As I said, I've been trying to get this done for 3 years, but something or the other came up, or I just lost motivation and couldn't keep up with it and stuff like that. But now I was pretty sure that I have to apply this year. And if I had to apply, you need a score. So just the approaching deadline was the
Right. But
major
you
source
never
of
gave
motivation.
anything else to take over. But yeah, because then you've just been the ideal student. It's sometimes very
No,
surreal
no,
to see that,
not, not.
you could do so. It seems like it's such an easy breeze, but I
No,
failed
no,
to
no,
believe
it
it.
really was not. It really was not a breeze. Uh,
Right.
the thing is that I have been trying to do it on and off for the past 3 years. So it
That's the
wasn't
bigger
like
struggle.
everything, yeah, everything was new to me. I knew a lot, not if not all, most of the concepts were familiar. The exam pattern was familiar. I had taken mocks before. Verbal is pretty much the same as the the GMAT.
You're right.
So I was already up to speed on a lot of verbal and about half of quant. So that much I already had in the my 2.5 years of preparation before I started this time. So
Right.
that makes it seem like it was a breeze, but it's been a long struggle.
You officially started it this time, only,
Yeah.
really sat down to start. Now, if there is a certain piece of advice to anybody who's out there getting started to do their preparation, what are the do's and the don'ts? You give us an unconventional tip, like probably, 3 years. Don't spend that kind of time. Maybe three
Yeah,
months is all you need.
definitely
So,
don't spend
so
that
what are the
kind of time.
things that you might want to say in terms of the material, resource, timelines, or any personal tip that you would say to any student?
So this is going to sound very generic, but this is like actually coming from the heart. Just stick to the plan that comes with your course. Just stick to it. If you just stick to it, give 3 hours of your time every day, then in 3.5 months, you will have enough preparation to score at least a 95th percentile. At least. If you then, depending upon your aptitude, it can go up or down, but you'll get at least to a baseline of 95 percentile if you just stick to the plan. Because even the kind of questions that we prepare for at top are like a cut above. Like I didn't get, I would say, any question that was of that level on the GMAT,
Exam.
especially on the first one. On the second one, there were a couple that were a bit dicey, but on the first one, I actually breezed through the exam. I had 10 minutes remaining on the quant section, and then verbal and DI also didn't seem like much of a challenge. So, because then I had been taking the top mocks. So that's like a stark difference between the level of questions. So if you can just stick to the plan, give 3 hours of your time every day and be consistent with it for 3 to 4 months, then I think that's all you need. You don't need to do anything other than that.
Right. Something that I forgot, but I wanted to ask. You mentioned in the last attempt that you got when you got the score, there were so many things that did not go right. There were times you had to travel, you fell sick, and then you barely had any things to travel, time to rework. Um, and yet you were slightly confident that you've done your concepts and your depth very well. But still, it would be for any other person, I think they'd be like, how do you get this confidence to finally go give the GMAT? But I think you made that piece also, ki 685 hai to check.
Yes.
But what
Yeah,
did
yeah,
you
that
do
was the thing.
specifically at that time?
So
Like,
the thing was, because before I had plans to travel, I had booked my GMAT. So then I didn't have any, then things came up and I had to go there. So I didn't have any choice. I had to, if I booked the exam, I had to give the exam. And I already had a score. So I was like, okay, if we get more than that, then that's fine. Because even in that score, like we discussed, I just got one question wrong in quant, and the score tanked. Plus, as I said, I felt like I breezed through the exam. So I was like, okay, if I breeze through it, maybe I can get a better score. If not, then that's fine. I already have a pretty decent score, so that's going to work. So it was mostly that. Okay, I already have a score. If I can do better, we can do better. If not, that's
so to summarize, the mental pressure was not really big. Like you just went in to say that, I am going to be okay with the result, but I'll give my best. That
yeah.
is that's the best in even in any case of adversity that you face. Because if you want to have the best outcome to the preparation that you've done, not the actual result that you want to, but at least the preparation, the best it is that you don't take any mental pressure, right? You really have to have that calm thought and composure and at least that thought that chalo, whatever happens, we'll see after it, but now I'll give my best, irrespective of all the adversity. But this is like a big inspiring story, I must tell you, Anuj. I mean, this is not just for GMAT, at least I will take that on the face value for anything that that I would probably do, or anybody for that matter would be watching this. So thank you so much for sharing this part of your story. So what's next and what are you looking ahead and in terms of application, in terms of what schools are you looking to apply to?
So actually, just yesterday, I was discussing things with my consultant in my family, and I'm actually thinking not to apply this year now, and just take another year and maybe go for some of the IVs and ISB next year.
Right.
Yeah, so maybe NYU Stern, Kellogg,
Right.
ISB, and then there's one in Kuala Lumpur, Asia School of Business.
Yeah.
So
So
those would
again,
be,
you've
yeah.
chosen very different schools in terms of there's general management, there's marketing, there is finance, right? So you have a mix of it. But where do you really think you would like to like what is the stream that you would like to take if you were to consider?
Yeah, so I would actually personally love to go to ISB. because of two things. One is that I want to stay in India, and the second is that I want to get into consulting. So ISB would be like the perfect fit.
Right.
But again, getting into ISB is not an easy deal. So we'll
Oh.
see what happens.
This is where we all, really admire you, Anuj. I mean, with this score, you will have ISB hopefully giving you a full scholarship and full ride also. Forget about just the admit. I mean, I'm being very hopeful about this, but really, you have got a great score. You can really breeze through your admit as well. But this is again another big lesson that a lot of people really look at giving GMAT so that the round one deadline is approaching. Of course, if you have made up your mind, you go for it. But then with that pressure on, it's very difficult. You've just got the score and now you're giving a thought of applying a year later.
Yeah,
So,
no, actually, I gave the GMAT thinking that I would apply this year
but
with
then
the
your
deadline
consultant had
approaching.
another.
But yeah, after getting the score, we decided, yeah, we'll go for it next year.
But that's a good one, at least. You
Yeah,
have now have this score. Now you don't have to rush through your application or
yeah,
compromise
that's
in any of the application. That really works. Thank you so much again for joining me this morning and sharing this incredible story. Okay, this is like my
thank you so much.
personal favorite, I would say. And I should be biased, but there's so much of personal learning that I've had. But thank you again. We'll just hope that the admits come through and we'll stay connected. I hope you will let
Yeah,
me know whenever you do. And I
yeah.
have to personally, I cannot end this without thanking you and without passing the regard from Sandeep sir. He's extremely proud. And when someone gets a verbal 100 percentile, he'll be like flying in the air for sure. Right. And he and us at Top and Percent are, extremely grateful that you've chosen Top and Percent and Sandeep sir as your mentor in this leg of your preparation. So again, big congratulations and thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And as for choosing top 1%, I can say with full confidence that it is by far the best resource one can access to take the GMAT if you're targeting a very high score. Because the kind of depth and the kind of preparation that we do, I would actually say I didn't need like 50% of it in the GMAT. I was so over prepared, and that's the kind of bar that Sandeep sir is setting.
Right,
So if anybody is targeting a score above 98 percentile, I would say just go with top and don't think about it.
right. Thank you again, Anuj. You have a lovely
Thank
day.
you so much.
Bye.
Bye bye.